Joining us right now is Democratic Congressman Johnny Olszewski of Maryland. He sits on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Thanks for being here, Congressman. Do you believe this is finally the deal that will end up eventually bringing this war to an end?
Well, color me skeptical, Kate, but I have seen this show before, and as CNN has reported, this is maybe the 40th time the president has announced a deal with Iran. And so obviously I want to see a deal, but this is a deal to have a deal, and those announcements have fallen flat before. So I look forward to seeing the details if we actually have an MOU put forward and signed. But I have a lot of questions and concerns still as to whether or not this will be lasting.
What do you think? What's your view on lifting sanctions for Iran as part of this?
Well, you have to keep in mind this is a president who ripped up a deal that we already had in place that accelerated the Iranian nuclear program. And so I'm open to the idea of lifting sanctions if we actually are ensuring that Iran does not have nuclear capabilities and the Strait of Hormuz is opened up. We know that there have been incredible costs of this war that the president acted on without congressional approval or a plan. We've lost service members. We are paying more at the pump in the grocery store, and we've paid tens of billions of dollars to do it. So the deal has to actually accomplish those ends, and I'd be open to lifting sanctions if a deal actually does just that.
One of the most recent threats that the president made was that the United States is eventually going to move in and take Karg Island, that key oil hub for Iranian oil exports. At the same time, the president says that this will not be an endless war. He has said that actually yesterday that he had ended the war. Still, there are even some Republicans who are edging towards saying that this may be reaching endless war status. I'm going to play for you what Senator Kennedy of Louisiana said yesterday.
I'm worried about the move on Karg Island. I'm not saying the president's wrong, but this is how it started in Vietnam. Committing troops is it's very, very, very dramatic step.
So I have to say, hearing a Republican senator draw the line between what could be happening in the Gulf and the Vietnam War is quite something. I mean, when do you think this hits endless war status?
Well, it's quite an admission from a Republican senator, and I'll say I absolutely agree and have concerns about putting boots on the ground. I think if we were to commit soldiers on the ground, that certainly would move us towards endless war status. And what we know is that this is a really long-standing war that at this point is as unpopular as both the Vietnam War and the war in Iraq. And so in many ways, it's starting to feel just as if it is one of those endless wars that Americans don't want, and that is harmful for us back here at home.
The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, this key intelligence authority used to stop terror attacks. Many lawmakers see it as a critical tool in U.S. national security. Others, there's big conversations about reforms, though. Still, many Democrats, most Democrats, and some Republicans voted against extending that law just yesterday. And now it is set to expire for the first time at midnight tonight. I want to play for you what the Republican House Speaker said.
The questions are for the Democrats in the House and Senate, why they're willing to jeopardize the lives of millions of Americans to make a political point, because they have a disagreement about someone that the president has appointed for a short-term position. It is absurd. There is no way to defend it. They just jeopardize the safety of every American citizen. I'm going to be praying that we do not have an event on our shores. There will be a lot to answer for if we do.
Congressman, you're one of the Democrats who voted against extending this law, and he says this is now on your shoulders. What do you say?
Well, I think the Speaker should talk to members of his own conference who also voted against this extension. Look, this is an important law. I want to see it reauthorized. I want to see it extended because it can and has saved American lives. But there are both very real concerns about spying on Americans. And to be clear, this is a crisis that President Trump created by appointing Bill Pulte outside of the law that requires extensive national security expertise and experience. And that was made clear when he made an appointment right after the vote failed. And so I'm ready to move back to Washington immediately if we can get a deal that puts on those sensible guardrails supported by Democrats and many Republicans, and we can have a conversation about a long-term director for that agency as well that actually meets the criteria and the qualifications.
Do you think Jay Clayton is that guy?
I think it's certainly an improvement, but what I have concerns about is that he has been on making the rounds on national television, both stoking election fraud fears that the president has been parroting, and he also has been defending this awful, ridiculous IRS settlement. So it's why we have a confirmation process. I trust the Senate will do a full and thorough vetting, and we'll see where the votes land on that issue.
You've been pushing a bill, we've talked about it previously, but you've been pushing a bill to impose term limits on Supreme Court justices. And I was just seeing that the governor of Kentucky, who's seen as a 2028 contender, has picked that up and is now pushing kind of that as, you know, an issue that he wants to see happen as well. If Democrats win back the House, do you have buy-in from leadership to actually move on this bill?
Well, we are talking with leadership. I'm proud that we are picking up co-sponsors every day for this legislation. I think this is a common sense reform, and I welcome the support of Governor Beshear on this important issue. It's supported by strong majorities of Republicans, Democrats, and independents. This is an issue that I think can and should be bipartisan. I think that a lot of Republicans would be hard-pressed to vote against it if we're given a chance to put it on the floor. And so I look forward to continuing to talk to Democratic leadership in the event and when we take back the House this November.
I am interested to see if this picks up steam, if you take back the majority. It's good to have you on, Congressman, as always. I thank you for your time. Omar.
New video this